As a free thinker, I only repeat what my party says.
Common sense? That's problematic.
The think tank that forgot to think.
All right. So we're going to continue on with the video. And this time we're going to let the Joe Budden Podcast, led by Joe Budden, and he's going to give his take on, Angela Rye and the Native Land Pod, featuring Andrew Gillum and Tiffany Cross. This is a continuation of the conversation about the interaction between Queenzflip and Marc Lamont Hill. So let's see what Joe says, and then we'll go from there. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe.
See, especially when you pretending to do all of this super black kumbaya shit. I got a problem with that too. I got a problem with the people that masquerade as kumbaya, super black, all for the people, and I'll be the first one to tell you how we're different. I come on here every week and say we're less different than we are like.
Well, that's what it's about, bruh. That's why do you think Republicans, black Republicans, are so adamant in their stance on being conservative or being Republican? Because once you remove the victim Olympics, once you remove the fact that the Democrats and people that are black liberals, all they do is sell us on what you just said, being black and black kumbaya, and not actually just truth and values and results. You realize you're being gamed, bruh. You're being gamed. They're playing with you. But when you decide to go with the Republicans, you realize, oh, shoot. Yeah, you're not kissing my butt because I'm black. And hey, you're white, I'm black, or you're whatever, but you're basing this off of the laws of the country. You may not necessarily understand my culture, even care for my culture, but you care for the laws that allow us to be entrepreneurs, that allow us to own private businesses, that allow us to own private property, that allow us to negotiate our taxes, if anything, abolish our taxes potentially, to negotiate our trade deals, what we import, what we export, how we produce our medications, how we produce our foods, how we control the infrastructure, how we control the trade. All these things matter, and not talking about the things that distract us and what makes us different. These are the necessities that the Republicans are talking about. But people aren't talking about that. People aren't highlighting that. So it becomes very performative. It's super performative, and it's not beneficial to the progress and the continuing of a dominant nation and society. The Democrats who become more social are going to say these things are associated with evil and tyranny and fascism. But these things actually are the values that protect us and allow us to thrive and grow. So you have to be very cognizant. One side is selling you things. They're selling you that they are for freedom and that they have integrity and that they're the good guys. But it's performative. Because when you watch what they produce, you'll see that that's not the case. It's fluff, smoke and mirrors, and it's manipulation at its core.
We just got different ideologies. But I'm not going to keep listening to people who in 25 years, I've never said the name Angela Rye. I don't give a fuck about nothing y'all talking about over there. I'm saying that respectfully.
They're going to say, look, he doesn't care about what we're talking about. He's ignorant. As if a person in this country doesn't have the right to pay attention to what they want to pay attention to. But they're going to make it seem like what they're talking about is so important because they are elitist. They think that they are the most intelligent. They think they have the best ideas. They think they're always right. They think just because they simply are backed by the word Democrat and democracy and these key words and black power and women's rights, they use these things, these labels, in order to hide behind this false bravado of, and they're not going to hold you to what you do now and what you're actually trying to bring to the table and the results that you've given and that you produced. They're going to point out their lowest moments. They're going to manipulate the narratives, and they're going to present you to the public like, hey, look at this guy. In 2016, they did X, Y, and Z. You really want to listen to them or you want to listen to me? I'm here for your freedom and I care about the people. But the people are not that savvy. You know, the people that are savvy aren't the majority. If you go back to my other video about why it's important that we are a republic and we're not just a democratic or a democracy, we're a democratic republic, is because we uphold the laws. So even if the minority gets overwhelmed by the majority, what's right will always remain. Think about it. What's right will remain because we are not focused just on, you know, one side of the coin. You know, it's like if you have a gang, right? And then you got two people walking down the street and the gang has their own culture, their own values, and they're the majority. And they take over a neighborhood. And in that neighborhood, they see two people walking down the street and they jump those two people. Does that make it right? Just because you have the majority of people leaning a certain way that are saying certain rhetoric, does that make it right? Does that mean they're correct? Or should we really analyze what they do, what they're talking about? Does it make sense? Is it even traditional to what's been right, what we consider right in our communities, in our country? We have to put our thinking hats on. We have to think. Until you do these things, you're just going to be manipulated. They can sell you with their politics. They can sell you with religion. They can sell you with free things and trinkets and money. They can sell you with fame. They can sell you with exposure. But the truth doesn't really sell. Well, the truth sells now because people are craving the truth. A lot of people are thirsty for knowledge, thirsty for spiritual healing, thirsty for true enlightenment. And I'm not talking about the package selling of enlightenment. I'm talking about people who really want to learn. They want to know that when they get some information or value or something told to them or shown to them, it's going to make them better. So when they listen to people like me, their brain works better. And not only that, they're going to hear what I'm saying and they're going to see it out in the world. They're going to see it in the news. They're going to see it when these politicians speak. They're going to see it when these podcasters speak. And they're going to be like, oh, shoot, that makes sense. This is what happens. Now, back to the subject. These guys claim to be pro-Black, but they're disparaging one of the most prominent pro-Black people in the space. And they're doing it under the guise of intellectual superiority.
I don't come on here and say a word about any of that shit. I expect reciprocity. You could have titled that clip totally different.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
You know your name generates views, bro. Your name generates views. They don't get that many views. They're not that popular. And they're gonna use your name because your name carries a value and a weight that they don't have on their own. And there's nothing wrong with that because that comes with the game, that comes with the territory. It's part of marketing. But you know, everyone in the space does it to some extent, to be fair.
Don't claim to be super pro-Black and then take the #1 Black urban podcast and put that type of stink on it because you think you got a friend over here. That don't give you a license.
I don't think it's that. I don't think if Marc was here or not, if
Marc was here, they would never have those conversations.
That's true. If Marc Lamont Hill wasn't on the podcast, they probably would never speak on this podcast at all. Which is also a bad thing because if they're so pro-Black, why wouldn't they want to highlight one of the independent Black platforms to, you know, help promote it? Because that helps do what? Amplify the Black voice, right? So it's a contradiction. It makes no sense. And the fact that they're documenting this on YouTube, it further exposed and it helps us because we don't want these Democrat socialists or these socialists to remain in power. You know, we have the guy running for the mayor of New York, I forgot his name, but they are gearing up for a V2 of the Democratic agenda. And as an American, we have a right to, you know, because it is a democracy, right? Because it's a democracy, we have a right to vote who we want to represent us, who we want to elect. I don't want a socialist in power. I don't want a socialist that wants to destroy our system that has been here for decades and centuries at this point. That my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my great-great-grandparents have experienced and lived in. Just because people have new ideologies and ideas of what's true. You can't come into a space and start to dictate things. That's not how it works. So you have to look at it from that perspective.
No,
They having those conversations because their friend is up here.
no, they having those conversations because Marc is deemed an academic and an intellectual, which you
Well,
are.
he is, not deemed,
No,
he
no,
is.
no. I said what you are.
Also, the Black community has to stop putting these people that come from academia and have these degrees on pedestals. The Black community is easily sold by certain things. They're sold by celebrities because if you get, it's like high school. People follow the popular person. They follow the person that has some status, some titles, but they don't look at who they really are, what they really represent, what they really produce. What is their track record? And I'm not saying that they have to be squeaky clean. I'm saying, how did they bounce back from something? Did they have adversity? Did they make a mistake? How did they react to that mistake? I'm not saying look for the perfect person, because none of us are perfect. But you can't just only follow the people that sell you things, but the people that might speak truth, but just because they rub you the wrong way, you throw the baby out with the bathwater. It just doesn't produce the results that you're going to need in order to thrive. And the Black community needs to revamp, they need to rethink, and they need to reapproach how they look at things collectively. And that's how you establish a new culture. Because you have new behaviors, you have new steps, and you take these things into account when you approach how you look at people. And when you look at how people come and approach you and how they try to, pimp you politically, pretty much. Just like the church. The Black church pimped the Black community for years. They pimped them for their money. They pimped them for attendance. It's all a game. Who's using who?
So now it's, why is he even there? Mm-hmm. Like Angela Rye said, Marc, just come home.
Angela Rye.
Angela Rye said, Marc, just come home.
That's the other beat.
But then you go on to say how diverse Marc is. So I think that that's an insult because you don't put Marc in a box. Marc is home. Marc is a Black man sitting in a room with Black men that grew up in similar circumstances, albeit.
They're basically doing to you what they claim white supremacists or racist white people do to Black people. That's what they're doing to you. They're judging you based on how you talk, how you dress, your platform, the hip hop background, the hip hop association. They're putting you guys in a box. They're saying Marc Lamont Hill, he's an academic. He is intelligent. He's an accepted Black. He's a real Black man. You guys are flawed Black men. You guys aren't intelligent. Joe Budden has a $1 business. Queenzflip has $1 million business, has billions of views on YouTube. So clearly there's some intelligence somewhere, right? They are running their own enterprises, apparently. And not only that, they're growing year over year. So how can you say they're not intelligent when they're doing this independently outside of a major system backing them completely? They may partner with the systems that are established, but they still run their primary organizations themselves. And that's what the liberal people like to gatekeep. They had a certain stronghold on a certain class in Black society, where they were able to reach certain classes, or a certain class in a certain income bracket, right? With their connections. They have fraternities, organizations, et cetera, et cetera. We see that going on where people identify with you based on, it could be on your color, your skin, your gender, et cetera. And, right or wrong, it is what it is. But the Black elites came through, the college system, academia, and the working class Black, alongside the loss of the traditional jobs, the change in the economy, the gatekeeping of information. Thankfully, entrepreneurship has been promoted. Ownership, investing, and stuff like that has been revitalized. But the working class Black man has suffered because they haven't progressed. And they just follow Black elitists. And the Black elitists don't teach them anything. The black elitists are like bookworms. They read all day, they study all day, but they don't have anything of value that actually produce any tangible results. If you go to a college and you listen to a business professor, but you listen to, maybe you go downtown, you see the business owner that owns a shop, right? They could own a jewelry store. And you could pick his brain. He can tell you how to open it, how much it costs, X, Y, and Z, the real world players, etc. Who is more valuable there? Who actually knows what they're doing? Now, I'm not saying that professors and teachers don't have a place, but usually they have some kind of experience to back up what they're teaching. Now we have people that strictly just read things, and all of a sudden they become the experts in these fields when that's never been the case. An expert is someone that has done something for years at a time. They didn't just read the book, they lived the life. They walked the journey. So you're going to listen to someone that walked the journey and actually experienced something as opposed to someone that has only read it. And it also reveals a lot for you to claim that you know something so thoroughly when you just only read it. You never experienced it. Or you don't know anyone else to validate the things that you're talking about. That's called theory. That's why college is falling off, because it's just strictly theory and ideology. Just a lot of ideas, a lot of theory, but no real world examples. Nothing that translates to anything that's beneficial or productive in real world scenarios. That's why trade schools are so important, because that actually produces something. That's why they say trade school is going to produce the next millionaires, not colleges. Colleges, you're coming out with debt. Trade school, you're coming out with, a little bit of debt, but you can make your own money automatically. You could be independent. You could work under somebody, and then you can start your own thing. And you actually have the skills in trade to perform duties that are a necessity to our system and our infrastructure. Plumbing, electrical, HVAC, right? I'm not saying there's not a place for people that are articulate, well-read, well-spoken, but these people aren't using their gifts appropriately. Those people are meant to build bridges, meant to communicate the truth. They're not meant to put themselves on a pedestal and then be the God, judge, and jury. That's what intelligence is not. Intelligence is somebody that is able to analyze a situation accurately and communicate it effectively and produce actual tangible things. That's intelligence. Taking nothing and putting it and making it into something. That's intelligence. Not just reading things and repeating things and claiming that you know it all. That's the opposite of intelligent.
He wasn't all in the court. You can't say
We
he's
all
not
had
home.
our own walks of life.
Yeah, dog. Like I just disagree with that shit. I look
And
at it.
thank God there was a black-owned, independent media company there to pick up our good brother when he was misunderstood by.
So the working class black man, or the black man that came from the working class, that came from, the lower socioeconomic ladder, as they call it, that's the guy that has the platform to hire the academia. The guy that dropped out of school, the guy that has a high school education, has a multi-million-dollar platform in business, and he's the one hiring the person that went to school for all these years, has a doctorate, and they're the ones saying that they're more intelligent, and they want to lead the community. And they're saying people like Joe Budden and Queenzflip are just basically ignorant. That's what they're saying. They're saying they're not intelligent and they're ignorant. But they're the ones providing the platform that can hire these people. So who's the boss? Who's really in charge? And the problem is people like Joe and Queenzflip aren't walking in their purpose completely fully, because they allow themselves to be led by false ideologies and things that aren't meant to be. You guys are the men of your community. You're there. Act like it. I'm glad you're having this conversation and you're challenging them, but don't just challenge them when they come directly at you. Challenge them when they're just wrong in general, when they're saying things that aren't going to produce anything for the Black community. These conversations aren't going to save everybody. They're not going to change everybody's mind, but we don't need to. This is, like I said, this is a democratic republic. The reason why the Republic part is so important, because if you rely too much on us being a democracy, everyone has a right, everyone has a voice, well, the majority could be wrong. We just need a few. We need a few strong people. We need a few influential people. We need a few segments of wise leaders and wise followers to come together, push the right agendas, get the work, produce, set up infrastructure legally, because that's what is allowed, because the founders of this country feared that one day or at certain points, the mob can be wrong and the mob will try to rule. You never should be afraid of being technically an outsider to something if you think it's wrong, if you know it's wrong. You shouldn't be a contrarian, but if you see where something is going, you see a bunch of people celebrating BS, does that just mean you're supposed to join it? People are you got a bunch of people twerking in a club. Now every girl wants to twerk. It's like mind control. But when you want to be different, you're ridiculed. They call you things, they name call you. You gotta be wise, and you gotta realize what this is really about, what things are, why they're in place. And when people like Joe Budden start to, keep pushing against these things, we can finally move the needle a little bit more.
Other outlets.
Talk about it.
Why is that part not being said by pro-Black native land people?
Because that's a stunt. They're not going to big up something. Listen, bro, they are programmed and taught what to celebrate. They taught to celebrate. If you were a woman, Joe, they would celebrate you all day, every day, because that's what they're taught and pushed. They're not pushed to celebrate independent Black male podcasts that go against the grain, do what they want, say what they want. They're not for that. That's not your purpose in the society to them. Your purpose is to follow them, support them, and that's it. So whatever their agendas are, because they lead you, you don't lead them. Even though this is a democratic republic, the people elect them. The people elect the politicians. We elect the representatives. They don't tell us what to do. We tell them what to do. But when you got a majority of people manipulated by a few representatives, then you could cause issues, right? Just because someone's charismatic, just because someone knows how to speak and they know how to get your attention. That's why the preachers are so dangerous. That's why certain teachers are so dangerous, because they know how to draw you in. They say the right things. That's why, watch the Book of Eli. The Book of Eli explains why that book, the Bible, was so important and why people were trying to literally kill him for that book. Why? Because if you get that book, you get the wisdom, you get the information from that book, you can manipulate society. Because the laws, the stories, everything in that book is pretty much valuable, because you can apply it to the world at any time. But if you twist things and you use it and you're charismatic, you can do what? You could pretty much control people. Public conversations, we have a right to criticize and critique these things because they're happening publicly on public platforms. So, yeah, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and I'm out. Holla. All praise.